I was really excited on where my film journey was going to take me. At this point, I was going to enter my junior year of high school, and I noticed that one of the classes I could take was one called IB Film. This class actually focused on film production rather than just, film studies and stuff like that. And I was really excited because I wanted to make them as good as they can possibly be. And I knew that I wanted to put everything into it like I did with choices. But I learned that day that even if you make one good film, that doesn't mean you're going to make great films all the time. You're going to hit some bumps along the road. And a lot of these film exercises we did, I was pretty disappointed with how they turned out. I was kind of surprised because, after I did choices, I really thought that I had this like power to make amazing films and to do like this great stuff. And, I obviously I needed to learn this early in my career because I didn't want to be this cocky, self centered person. Maybe I had that stuff in me when I was younger, but, this was something that was important to learn early on. I'm not gonna lie. At this point, after doing, bad film after bad film after bad film, I kind of was, I had to tell myself, these are just exercises. We're all still learning. We needed to understand just the basics of how to frame a shot and how to tell a story. And I guess I was just worried because it's like, I've done this before. How come these aren't turning out as well as I hoped? And for me, my biggest concern was the final project, the final film that was going to be shown in front of the entire school at that year's IB Film Festival. That was really my biggest concern. And I knew that if I wanted to do this, I needed to really buckle down and get started working on this. When I entered my senior year of high school, in my IB film class, I started working with these group of guys, and the films were actually turning out adequate. And, obviously they weren't great films by any means, but they were films that I was satisfied with on how they were turning out. And I was thinking, okay, all right, we're on a good track here. Now, the final project was coming up soon, and I knew how much was riding on this. And I was thinking, this film was going to be shown in front of the entire school. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to try to write down a story and I'll let you guys know, when I'm done, and you can read it and you can tell me what you guys think. They were like, okay, yeah, for sure. Let's do this. As I began writing, I started to think of that statement that writers tell themselves whenever they try to think of a concept, which is write what you know. And at that time, I knew that I was a member of the cross country and track and field team in my high school. At first, it began with a high school athlete. And I thought maybe something is preventing him from doing sports, such as an injury, perhaps a permanent injury. And not only that, it could be an injury he sustained that also killed a loved one or a special person in his life. So he feels this stress and guilt, and then maybe he can face a challenge that'll not only determine his strength, but also his mental capabilities to push forward and push through on life. And that became CruTch. The biggest challenge for me was the time frame. Our film had to be no longer than 5 minutes, which I thought was going to be a huge challenge for me. But when it came to the actual filming, I did film some additional scenes that I initially had to cut out in the final cut. We see the process of Christian actually leaving his house, such as putting on his shoes and opening the door and going down the steps of his house. For me, I thought that was really important to have because, we're seeing Christian leave his house for the first time in a very long time. But I had to cut out that scene. But one of the biggest changes that I had to do was in the climax. Now, the script was correctly written. Christian does crawl up the hill as he drags his body on the ground. But originally, halfway through, Christian ends up falling again and he ends up falling to the bottom. And what he does instead is he props himself up against a tree, causing him to use that tree as a support beam to have him stand up. And then Christian actually limps his way up the hill. And once he reaches the top, he grabs the crutches, and just as it was written, he throws them down the hill and he continues walking. But again, when I added that, it went over 5 minutes. So I had to change that, and I actually just made it seem as though he crawled up the hill the first time successfully. And then once he reaches the top, he uses that tree to prop himself up. And then we see him standing. And then he throws the crutches down the hill and he continues walking. I think that ending actually works just as well because the fact that he's standing at the end gives like that shock value. And we see him throw the crutches down, which also adds to the shock value, and then finally walking his way off screen. The pictures we see at the beginning of the film are actually all photoshopped. We set up my green screen and my lights, and we had my cousin Julian, who played Christian in the film, dress up in different outfits, doing various outdoor activities such as hiking, running, soccer, baseball, and then we had him holding up a few accolades and awards. We also used that to make the family portrait of him and his mom, which is played by my actual mom. For me, an important set dressing piece was the shrine that Christian has for his mother. I remember going to the Dollar Tree and buying a bunch of flowers from roses and tulips, and we, put them in vases, and we had a table and we put that inside of our living room because that's a pretty important piece in the film, having him look at that shrine and just seeing his mother there with the newspaper article showing the car accident was really touching. Whereas Choices, it took me over 2 months to film, CruTch only took 3 days. And then I edited it, which took about maybe a week. And then it was finally done. And next thing you know, it's the day of the IB Film Festival. And I was also given the honor of editing the entire IB Film Festival, meaning that I had to put in all the films that the students made and put them in this big video file, along with commercials that we did about the actual class. And it was crazy. It really was like the first time I saw a work of mine being shown on a huge screen. And it was amazing. CruTch is not only another example of why I want to be a filmmaker, but it's also an example of being able to push through the problems that you face and keep pushing forward and succeeding in the end. It's just really amazing, and hopefully you all enjoyed. Thank you.